Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I am Evan Abrams, and today I am joined by the one, the only Brandon Anderson to dive into, honestly, one of my favorite podcasts that him and I do every year. And just because it's kind of long shot season with some of these, but we'll go into the criteria. It is NFL award markets. So this is really one of his specialties. So he has got at least 10 to 15 pages of notes, which he will definitely tend to bear down a little bit. But Brandon, he's got articles up on each of these awards. So we're going to jam them all into one episode here. We'll get to who typically wins these awards, some of the favorites, his best bets, some long shots, some criteria. It's going to be fun. We'll also have a standalone episode specifically looking at the MVP. So keep your eyes out for that. We're gonna record them pretty close to each other, and they will be out in the feed pretty soon. So Brandon, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to your favorite pod of the year, I guess.
I know this is the big one, and this is one, of course, that we'll be referencing and coming back to all season long as we kind of update our positions, add to the portfolio. But yeah, we're doing 8 awards today. We got a brand new award that just started. We have a newish award that we're just allowed to bet on this year, so those will be in there. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna go 5-ish minutes per award. If that's not enough for you, great news. Every one of these, I've got a whole deep dive with here are my 20 candidates, no lie. And here I'm ranking them, and here's the top 5, and here's the long shots. So we'll give you some names and bets here from both me and Evan. And if you want even more, it's all on Action Network. Be sure to catch the articles. There's already at least 2 up, probably 4 by the time you are listening to this. And those will all be coming out this week. So yeah, I'm excited. Awards season. We got all the notes. We got all the criteria. Let's get into it.
All right, yeah, so we're going to start with the Protector of the Year. And yes, to our producer, David Payne, it is a real award. So you can start off the top here by just saying now you can bet on it. The favorites are Penei Sewell at plus 450. You've got Lane Johnson around 7-1. Trent Williams, Mulata, Joe Alt. Those are the big names at the top. So why don't you just kind of go into the profile a little bit of what at least who's voting on it and how you're going to win this award, let's call it.
Yeah, so this one is very unique because, of course, number one, it's brand new. So my whole shtick on awards is, okay, what's the trend from the last 10 years? What's the last 15? What are the stats we're looking for? Well, guess what? There's no stats. It's offensive linemen. So you get PFF grade, and that's about it. And there's no history. We have no idea who they're picking. And importantly, and this is really important, normally all the rest of these awards are chosen by 50 people who turn in a ballot. Now, I changed the ballots where we're doing it. We're doing ranked ballots, top 3 or 5, depending on the award. Not this one. This one, it's a brand new award that we chose a special panel for with names you'd recognize, guys like Jason Kelsey, 2 centers, 2 guards, 2 tackles. So that's important. We got 2 at each position. They're recently retired offensive linemen. Orlando Pace is in the mix. Guys whose names you know. And those 6 alone will be picking a winner. So what do we do with that? Because we don't get to set up all the criteria and what we expect is coming. Here's what I think we should expect for the year. Number one, I think I'm going to treat this similar to a defensive award in that we need a known name. We're not going to recognize some sleeper right guard backup down the line. Defensive awards, we usually like the big known names. You named them at the top. All those names, even though you're wait, I'm betting on offensive linemen. Yeah, you know those names. You know who Penei Sewell is because you know these Eagles tackles. They're winning games. They're making a mark on the game. So I think it's going to be a known name. We need a winning team, I think. Almost all these awards don't specify, but other than Rookie of the Year, you almost always have to win games because that's the whole point. We're recognizing teams that deserve something good. I think you probably need to play on a pretty good offensive line. I'd prefer a great line that you're the standout rather than the one superstar and then not a great line around it. And I do think it matters, lastly, that this is the first Protector of the Year. I think these guys choosing are going to want to choose maybe more of a legacy pick here, right? Because this sets the tone. They may not be on the choosing committee every year, but we want to get, again, that's back to the known name. I think you just want an awesome offensive lineman. The names that we know seem like they're probably going to be in the mix. So that's what I think we're looking for. But we should wade in carefully because we have no idea, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I would be shocked to see the winner of this award be like 50 to 1, 40 to 1, and have like a bunch of jumbled criteria after a few years. But that's why the first year is going to be the most entertaining. So you have an article up on actionnetwork.com breaking down, let me say this nicely, 17 options of who can bet this award. But just go through some of your top bets. I'll give one out at the end here, but give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so I kind of rule out 7 names you probably know that I don't think are in the mix. One, importantly, Deion Dawkins from the Bills is one of the favorite names. Deion Dawkins actually helped to create this award. Like, him and one of the guys in the committee are where this award came from. That's just a little too Martha Stewart for me. Like, I don't think you can give it to the guy that helped create the award. So I can't go him. I give out 4 long shots in the article. Let me talk you through from 6 to 1, my top 6, and then 3 of them I'm going to bet. So number 6, Chiefs center Creed Humphrey, widely assumed to be the best center in the league, especially now that Frank Ragnow is retired. He's plus 3,300. So Creed Humphrey, top center in the league. And remember, we have 6 guys voting. 2 are centers and 2 guards and 2 tackles, but there's left and right on both of those. There's only 1 center. So I'm kind of hoping for maybe on this one, a bit of a plurality on some of the other ones. And Creed Humphrey, obviously, we're going to be talking about the Chiefs a lot, watching them on TV every single week. So that's him. Penei Sewell, you mentioned, he is the favorite. He's my number 5 guy here. So that's a no bet for me at plus 500. You got to look at the surroundings on these. Penei Sewell on the line loses the 2 guys right next to him, Kevin Zeitler and Frank Ragnow. He also loses Ben Johnson. You know we're talking about him today. So I think that is a step back on the line. And frankly, probably a step back from 15 wins last year. So I don't like investing in that sort of player. I think he would have been my pick last year. I think he would have been the winner a year ago if you had to pick someone. It's not last year. Number 4, Bears guard Joe Thuney was Chiefs guard Joe Thuney. So it's a name we know because of that. I think the narrative there is pretty easy. Now you get to go be the star in Ben Johnson's offensive line, where he helps to elevate line play. And you might get double credit because if your absence makes the Chiefs line not so good, that makes you look pretty valuable in both places. The Bears are better, the Chiefs are worse. Thuney maybe is the top guard in the league. We saw him play left tackle in the playoff run for the Chiefs last year. 40 to 1. He and Creed Humphrey are my 2 long shots. Quarter unit on each. 3 more names for you. 3 and 2 go together. It's the 2 Eagles guys. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, both tackles. I think this is like a LeBron and Dwayne Wade situation. Like, how can you choose one when they both exist together? They're both so good together that I think that they sort of distill the vote. You know, you take away from each other's argument. All right, last, number 1, always was going to be my bet here. From the time I heard this award came out this season, it's 49ers left tackle Trent Williams. 11 to 1, my first bet of the podcast, first award bet of the year. Trent's a stud. He is the guy. He is widely assumed to be the best left tackle, which is widely assumed to be the most important offensive line position. Rashawn Slater and Tristan Wirfs are both injured, so there's even bigger gap between him and the other tackles. He's the dude on a Niners team. They're about to go from 6 wins to maybe contending for the 1 seed with a super soft schedule. He's 37. Doesn't matter because when he's out there, all the metrics add up for him. He's still as good as anyone. I think he'll miss a couple games, but on this award, there's no stats. I don't need compiling stats. And I think we talked at the top, legacy award. Trent Williams is a legacy award. This is the guy you want repping the Protector of the Year award as the dude on the offensive line. So I love Trent Williams, 11 to 1, full unit bet on him. And then I mentioned Thuney and Creed Humphrey, quarter unit as long shots on those 2.
Yeah, my only question is what are the 6 guys, the Kelsey company, the people who will be, voting on this award? What are they going to be looking at? Like, are they going to ask somebody for some stats? Are they just going to, have a few beers and make a decision? I think it honestly kind of depends because I think you agreed with me on 2 long shots. I like Creed Humphrey and I like Thuney. Humphrey, I mean, from a stats point of view, he doesn't really give up sacks. You look at some of these sites, only 12 blocks blown by last year and, 15th most snaps. So the stats are all there. He's on Kansas City. I think it makes the most sense. And Thuney, I think, is fun for one reason. Like, God forbid one of the linemen get into a spot to catch a touchdown, which we've seen on the Detroit side. Now, would Ben Johnson even consider that with Caleb in Chicago? I don't know. But it's a thought, and I like the idea of Thuney and the long shot there. So those are my 2 look at here. Are we good with Protector of the Year? We good to move on?
I like the touchdown idea. Just, boost the numbers a little bit. Go get our award
Yeah.
here.
And also, Chicago's going to get a lot of looks and, things of that nature. But maybe it was a Dan Campbell thing. You don't know exactly who's coming up with that in the meetings. All right. Comeback Player of the Year. Now, this has had all sorts of drama on the internet. The Flacco thing that happened a year or two ago. This seems to be just more of a narrative story, but kind of go into it. Burrow's won it twice in 4 years. Just some crazy different numbers, Brandon.
Yeah, it's just a weird, wonky award that you kind of want to be careful on, I think. So we now have been specifically told that voters are supposed to treat Comeback Player of the Year as an injury comeback, a health comeback award. So, AKA, Joe Flacco, 250-1, suck it, that's gone forever. We don't want you retired off the couch. We want you actually returning from injury. However, should be noted, Sam Darnold did get 7 first-place votes last year, even though he technically shouldn't be eligible. Nobody's ineligible. They're just called to do the, quote, spirit of the award by injury and health. So I think we have to assume that that's the sort of comeback we want. We want a guy in a winning team. 14 of our last 15 winners of Comeback Player of the Year won at least 9 games. 13 out of 15 won playoffs. Burrow screwed that up for us last year. But we need a winning team, and we probably want a quarterback. 7 of the last 7 winners here are quarterbacks. 12 of the last 16 are quarterbacks as well. So, big shocker. We want a quarterback that wins games, and we like rewarding them. That's kind of what we're looking for with Comeback Player of the Year.
In terms of the top of the board, just looking at the people who are favorite, and it kind of goes back to your injury concern, at least from the year before. The favorite's Hutchinson. Then you've got Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy. Those are the only players listed under 20-1. So with that being said, are they the right favorites, and what other options might you give?
I think they're the right favorites, but I don't think that means you should bet them. So let me explain what that means. Only one defender has ever won this award. Hutchinson still coming back from injury and dominated, but in a pretty small sample last year. 3-1 for a defender when that's not who wins this award. I can't get there. Only one running back has ever won the award. That's probably a surprising thing, but makes sense if you think about it. Running backs have shorter shelf lives. And once you get that first big injury, it's hard to ever get back to that level again. That sucks because I really like McCaffrey for this award. He seems like a guy I'd like to invest in. I'm high on the Niners, but at 4-1, hard to back an award that doesn't go to running backs usually. Dak and Lawrence make all sorts of sense. They definitely should be in the mix here. Remember, we need a team that goes over 500. So do you want to bet on the Cowboys or the Jaguars? Not just these guys. You need the narrative. You need the winning boost. So I'm not sure I'm too excited there. I do have those two and McCaffrey in my top 5, just personally, not as bets, but as most likely to win. But there's 2 other names. I'm going to give you one to bet and one that we can't even bet yet. Because a weird thing about this award is you mentioned Flacco. Geno Smith won this 3 years ago. Alex Smith won it 5 years ago. Those guys didn't even have odds to start the season. They weren't even supposed to be starting to start the season. So there are guys who are unlisted right now who might become candidates here. For example, why doesn't Aaron Rodgers have odds anywhere? Dude is 40-something and tore his Achilles a year ago. What if he has a great season and the Steelers go like 13-4? Why not Aaron Rodgers? What about Matt Stafford for the Rams, who's literally right now coming back from an injury that could be career-threatening? What about, gotta do it, my Carson Wentz jersey? What if he steps in for the Vikings and he's the new Sam Darnold to lead them out of 13 wins or something like that? How about Ricky Pearsall, not a quarterback, but literally got shot during training camp last year and now could be the top receiver for the Niners? None of those guys are bettable, so I can't even recommend them as bets to you right now, but they're on my radar, and those guys in this specific award have come through. The one name you can bet, my one bet here, Tua Tagovailoa. I know that sounds crazy, but he's 35-1, and I think he belongs right in that mix with Dak and Trevor Lawrence. Very similar profile because, yes, I'm worried that Tua won't stay healthy. Duh. That's the whole thing we know. But if he does, he's paced for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, and he has a winning record on the field all 3 seasons under Mike McDaniel. We know he'll be good. We know the offense will be good. We just need him to actually be healthy. So this is not a bet on will he be good enough? Will the Dolphins win? No, if he plays and is out there, all the rest is fine. We just need him to play. I don't think he will, but it's 35-1, not 5-1 and 3-1 like the other guys. So Tua is my bet here, just a half unit on it. And then just a tiny long shot. I know it's a defender, but 150-1 Dre Greenlaw, just in case Denver is just flying around the field and this like iconic number one defense, and he's at the heart of everything. Everybody saw him get hurt in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. At 150-1, I could just see him having a moment and maybe giving us a chance to build a position. So Tua 35-1 and just a nibble on Greenlaw at 150-1.
So I like the Tua bet. I will say I think you're looking for the flyer that shows up in the middle of the season more than you are trying to bet the guy now. I mean, the fact that we've had Flacco at 250, Tannehill at like 150, and Geno at 150, like these guys tend to come off the board and kind of create their own story because it's a narrative award. So I think watching your tweets, your bets in the app, and trying to figure that out a few weeks in mid-season tends to be probably the lucrative way to look at this. It's quarterbacks. They've won 7 in a row, so I get that's probably where this is going to be coming from. I thought about Rodgers as well. And again, the injury narrative kind of changes what this could be. Like Fields, Richardson, Caleb, it's, people coming off bad years, but that's not what they're trying to go for here. So I think with that being said, you've got the right look at this. The only one I'll say, like Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, like sort of coming on injuries. Rashee Rice actually could make some sense. He might get more playing time and be in that offense, but to me,
I mentioned those two and Brandon Ayuk in the article. It's tough because for Ayuk and Godwin, we're not even getting them to start the season. So for starters, at least don't bet it now because in 3-4 weeks, you're bound to get a better number that's longer. But you also are just not getting enough stats that way. Like it's not a stats necessarily award, but we want production. And probably what we're going to get is like a third of the season, no games, then a third of the season where you're playing, but like not as good as you're supposed to be because you're still working your way back. And then you get the final third. We look really good, maybe in time to make a push, but I feel like it's a little too hard for me to get there. With Rashee Rice, obviously there are, let's call them other concerns. I don't know if I see folks voting for Rashee Rice to win this award, given what's happening with him off the field. So, I don't mind the receivers, but I'm probably going to stick with quarterbacks and kind of, just barely wade into the water here.
Agree. I kind of like Jimmy G, but he's not really coming back from anything at all. And the other one I guess I would say is like Cooper Kupp. I mean, we would keep talking about quarterbacks, but he's like 75-1 range. Like if he started to play well with Sam and Seahawks looked better than expected, maybe he would get some love. All right. Like next category here, we're going to talk about Coach of the Year, and then we're going to get into Assistant Coach of the Year. Yeah, you heard me. But we're going to start with Coach of the Year. Your Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, won this award last year. Went from 7-10 to 13-4 with Sam Darnold. Basically, last 3 year winners before that: Stefanski, Dable, Vrabel. So, in your eyes, I mean, aside from the odds, which I can talk about in a second, like what are you looking for with this award?
Yeah, I'm disappointed with this award, but obviously I'm excited about my guy KOC winning it. This used to be one of my favorite awards to bet, but in the last few years, it's quickly become one of my least favorites. Here's the problem. Only 32 people can win this, and based on history, I think we can rule out about half of those people. So that sounds good. We're down to like 15 possible winners. The problem is, if you look at each season, based on the criteria I'm about to get to, you still get like 5 possible winners at the end. Like last year, KOC wins, but who didn't win then? Sean Payton, who takes a Bo Nix rookie quarterback and gets in the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh, first-year coach, comes in and turns them into the playoffs. They don't win, even though they're going to fit every profile we're talking about here. And so the problem is you got to be right about your sleeper, and you still have to kind of like hit the right narrative that we don't know is necessarily going to come. There's no reason Peyton or Harbaugh or some other guys wouldn't have won last year. So that said, what are we looking for? You got to win a lot of games. You got to improve a lot from last year. And then I think the narrative portion, the best we can do is you got to beat your over-under. You got to beat expectations, right? So here's the numbers. Last 10 winners of Coach of the Year, 9 of the 10 won at least 11 games. So that's the floor. You got to win 11. 9 of the 10 went up at least 4 wins from the previous year. So you got to improve. And then 13 of our last 15 beat their over-under by at least 2.5 wins. So ideally, we want a coach that last year, the team won about 4 to 7 games. This year, their over-under is right around 500, 7.5, 9.5, somewhere in that range. We want them to jump 4 more wins into 11 plus wins, hopefully into the playoffs most of the time. So that's the profile. Football is volatile, so we get a bunch of those teams each year, and that's what makes it tricky.
And I think the issue is the odds kind of marry the storyline, which it didn't a few years ago. And you mentioned it off the top. Like, it used to be you'd find guys in the, let's call it 20 to 30 range that had those lower win totals that everyone was like, oh, they're going to stink. And people like yourself, like a bunch of other bettors would be like, okay, well, I see them at least getting to 500. And then all of a sudden you turn around, they win 1 or 2 more games and they're coach of the year for what they've done to the team that had bad preseason expectations. So at least I think that's what it is. But those guys are now the favorites. So I have a different way of kind of looking at this, which maybe I hope this award kind of turns into. But why don't you go with the names? So the names at the top, Ben Johnson's the favorite. Then you got Vrabel at second with about 750, 8 to 1. Then Liam Cohen, Aaron Glenn, about 10 to 1, 11 to 1. And then you've got Pete Carroll, Mike McDonald, Canales, and Gannon, all about 14 to 1. So kind of talk about some of those options. And then if not them, where do you see the guys kind of in the next range?
Yeah, so you nailed it. That it seemed like not too many years ago, we'd open up the odds for coach of the year and it'd be like, oh, you know who's a good coach? Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin and Sean McVay. And those would be all the favorites. It's like, no, that's not who wins this award. Again, you have to win games, but you have to win games when we didn't think you were going to. It's like a trick on ourselves. And what's interesting here is, so books have caught up. These are the right favorites, frankly. Of course, I like Ben Johnson. Duh. I'm high on the Bears at everything we've talked about. So yes, of course, that should be my pick, but now it's priced in and picks are about value. And I don't think there's a lot of value here. And I'm already invested in Bears Island in the division. I don't think I need more investment, just kind of doubling down on the same thing. I will note too, we like first year coaches to win this award. That's who you just named off. Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel. Again, they've caught on to what's winning. That's 6 of the last 14 have been first-year coaches with their team. Only 1 of 4, though. One thing to note, 7 of the last 9 winners here were offensive-minded coaches. If you kind of have to classify every coach as either offense or defensive-minded. So we like offense. That makes sense in modern football. Point for Ben Johnson as well. So Ben Johnson, I think, is the right favorite. Vrabel second. I'd put Pete Carroll third. These all fit. We've talked about it already. They're all teams that have a lot of reason to be improving. They all fit the formula. The Bears won 5 last year. The Patriots and Raiders won 4. They're all kind of in that middle range of expectations. Here's the problem. You might have this in your note as well, but I've noticed that I believe the last 10 Coach of the Year winners started the season at plus 1,800 or longer. So I'm wondering if there's a hidden fourth criteria. You got to beat the improvement expectations too. We already think Ben Johnson's team is going to improve. I've been talking about him for 3 weeks, and so has everyone else. We already think the Patriots are going to be good. They're already improving. They won 4. Their over-under is 8.5. We already think they're supposed to improve. So now you got to beat the improvement expectations by even more. The Patriots might have to win like 12 or 13 games and really blow expectations away to get here. So I think they've got 3 of the right favorites. I'm going to kind of go wonky on this award, and I'm going to go give you who are my 4th and 5th favorite, but not by odds. I'm going to kind of play contrarian. I've learned as a bettor, especially in the futures, sometimes it's not a bad idea to bet against yourself. Even if there's a position you feel strongly about, maybe you swerve and say, well, what if I'm wrong? If I'm wrong in this way, what happens there? And I say that because my first bet for Coach of the Year is Brian Schottenheimer and the Dallas Cowboys staff, who I ranked dead last in my coaching rankings just a week ago on this podcast. Here's the case. First-year coach, offensive-minded, not an offense I like, but he's offensive-minded. It's an easy narrative. It's America's team. They stunk last year, but they won 12 games 3 years in a row before that. We know about the NFC East champion. You never repeat, like 2 decades now. He's 30-1. That's the case. 30-1 is where I started here. Is like, okay, all the guys you named are the other first-year coaches, and they're all like 6-1 and 10-1 and 14-1. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be that good. But what if I'm wrong? The NFL is weird. Weird stuff happens. Schottenheimer 30-1. And then I'm staying in the state. This one I genuinely love. DeMeco Ryans, 65-1. This is my best bet here. Full unit on DeMeco. I actually wonder if people might be sleeping a little bit on the Texans. This is my number one defense. They're my number one special teams. And I personally am down on the offense. They're my dead last offensive line. They weren't that great last year. But what if I'm wrong? What if the defense and special teams and coaching are that good? And what if Nick Caley and the offense are pretty good? What if they can get the offensive line like kind of below average? And suddenly the run game is okay. And suddenly CJ Stroud is better. And, you know, everything elevates with the offense. And you already have a great defense. And you already have great special teams and coaching in a terrible division. We all want the sleeper in the division because we know the division's bad. What if the sleeper is Houston? I think they're going to have to win the 1 seed to get this. Because you're going to have to beat out Mahomes and Lamar and Josh Allen, but you get to play them, so you get some big marquee games. And I think that there's an easy narrative here as this like kind of 3-year, quote, lifetime achievement for DeMeco, where you're like, man, look at the Texans, who were a 2-win team 3 years ago, and here they are. They beat out all the best of the best in the AFC. CJ Stroud MVP? Not quite yet. How about DeMeco for Coach of the Year? 65-1. He's my favorite here.
Yeah, so I think you nailed on a bunch of stuff here. First-year head coach with Schottenheimer at 30-1 feels long and kind of goes with the list of everyone else. And yeah, maybe we may not love Dallas, but I think it's a good option for the price. I think you nailed it with DeMeco. It was on my list as well. It just feels way too long for, again, a top defense, an offense that we think can be there, a terrible division. And you can look at it two ways. They start in the Rams. So they lose the game, the price gets longer, awesome. But the first 4 games, if they beat the Rams, also pretty easy. They could start 4-0. So I like taking the 65-1 now. I'm completely with it. Let me just flip this category on its head for 1 second and I want to hear your thoughts.
Huh?
So the other way to look at it is the odds have moved way too far in one direction and they've figured out who wins the award. But at some point, what if it turns into a legacy award? So like Andy Reid hasn't won since 2002. He's won once. Like KC is, I think, 5-1 to win the 1 seed. He's 75 to 100-1 to win this award. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but it feels like the difference in price is interesting. So Mike Tomlin, 30-1. He's never won this award. I'll go through a few just 1 seed prices and coach of the year prices. Sirianni, plus 350, 75-1. McDermott, he's 2-1. He's 50-1 to win coach of the year. I think there is an opportunity potentially on some of these teams that we know are going to be very good. Now, they need the 1 seed. Maybe even some of them, they need the best record in the NFL. They need to lose 2 games, 3 games. But you're kind of asking for it with the other price, and some of them haven't won it. So that was the way I looked at it, but thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and I definitely looked at that angle as well. I think Tomlin is a name I was going to bring up here. I think what you want is, I don't know that I can get there on like an Andy Reid or a Sirianni, because if it's Andy Reid, it's just Patrick Mahomes. With the awards, you always want to know who's going to get credit. What's the story that we're going to tell of why is this team so good? And Andy's always going to be part of the story, but I don't think he can be the whole story. It almost has to be Andy Reid goes 15-2, but Mahomes missed a month. Okay, great, but I don't want to bet on that anymore. So with Tomlin, it's like, okay, Tomlin won, but with Aaron Rodgers and the defense, and he did all the Tomlin stuff again. Okay, sure. Kyle Shanahan, they only won 6 last year, and it's Brock Purdy, who we still think sucks for some reason, but they won 13 or 14. Okay, sure. So I think you have to be able to tell the story. And with some of these guys, you know, Josh Allen's coach, Lamar's coach, Patrick's coach, like, you can't have the superstar quarterback or players because they're going to get credit on the field. So I think it's an interesting swerve, but you almost have to, it's got to be because all the teams we already think are good are just who's good again. It's another year of the favorites, and there isn't that sleeper team. And then maybe it's the legacy award for one of those. But historically, that's not who's been winning it. So I don't mind it because the odds are so long. But I think it's, we may have to see one like it before I can get too excited to bet it that direction.
I appreciate you taking the swerve into my lane for a second. But I also think the angle as we go into assistant coach of the year is kind of comparing head coach and assistant coach in terms of odds, because I do think it is about who's getting the credit. So let's talk about assistant coach of the year, which is it's not a new award. This award has been out there. It's just new because we've never seen it in the legal betting space. Yep. So it is a new award for us to gamble on right now. So we're going to break it down for you. So go step by step here. Take us through the criteria, some of the recent winners.
Yeah, so Todd Bowles is our first winner. Arizona defensive coordinator Todd Bowles back in 2014. So that's the sample. We have basically a decade of sample here. Our guy Ben Johnson is the winner last year, offensive coordinator for the Lions. D'Amico, we just talked about, he won it a few years ago. Jim Schwartz for the Browns in between. These are the sort of guys that are winning it. It's either kind of your up-and-coming guy, Ben and D'Amico, or a lot of times we do get sort of, I'm going to say it gently, but the failed head coach who comes back as the coordinator and does a really good job there. So we have 11 years of data. We've had 5 offense, 6 defensive coordinators. So no real read there. A little more defense lately. I'm not sure. I think it's go either way, offense or defense. Similar coach of the year. You got to win. You got to improve. They're averaging 12 and a half wins. And remember, some of these are on 16-game schedules still. So probably 13 wins and 3.5 wins over the previous season. Every one of these guys, their teams won at least as many as last year. So it's not, again, just because we're continuing to play great defense or offense. You got to improve. This is like another way to recognize those coaches. 8 of the 11 winners are in their first 2 years as the coordinator. And almost half are in their first year. 4 of those 5 are that kind of failed head coach situation. And then the last thing is these guys are averaging a top 5 finish in points per game for their unit, but about 11 spots lower for the other unit. So you'd love, ideally, like a team that's a great offense, but an average defense, and they win like 12 games, or vice versa, defense to offense. So that's the setup. There's a lot of names here because assuming coordinators, we got 64 names. So where do we even start?
Yeah, so I think let's just go through the odds at the top because I just think it's interesting nonetheless at who gets listed there with so many names. So the favorite is Vance Joseph, and then you've got Flores and Sala right below him at 8-1, Vance Joseph at 6-1. Fangio's at 9-1. Then you've got Wilkes at 11-1, Eberflus at 14-1, and Kubiak at 16-1. So those are basically your top units in terms of, I think it's the team, but I also think it's the name, which I'll talk about in a second when you get to, okay, well, who's the quarterback? How good could this team be? And like, oh yeah, that's the offensive coordinator. So I think it kind of needs to marry together a little bit. So on that list, who do you like? And then you can go into who you're betting.
Yeah, so you named 6 people. I'm going to give you 6, but I'm going to only include half of your names. I think those first 3 you said are 3 of the right 6. Vance Joseph, Brian Flores, Robert Saleh. All 3 guys previously head coaches. All 3 guys no longer head coaches. They're leading great defenses. They're all defense that everybody expects to be pretty good. So there's a lot to like there. But remember, Denver, Minnesota won a lot of games last year, and the data tells us you got to win more games and you got to improve and surprise us a little bit. So that's not great for those guys. Robert Saleh, they only won 6 last year in San Fran, but we want lopsided unit, and we know San Fran's offense is the good unit, not the defense. I don't love that with him there. I think those are right to be in the top 6. I can't bet them at the short odds. Here are the other 3 names in my top 6. I'm going to bet a quarter or a half unit on all 3 of them. Again, swerving a little bit here. Our guy Cliff Kingsbury, 28-1 for Washington. I think this is a great way to invest in the Commanders. I don't mind investing a quarter unit in a team I don't really like because I could be wrong. And he's a year 2 offensive coordinator. He's kind of got that post-failure narrative. We see him doing some new things, establishing a great run game, and it checks out. Top 5 defense, maybe bottom 5, or top 5 offense, maybe bottom 5 defense. So if they do play well, it's got to be him. I think it's maybe too soon for Jane Daniels MVP. We'll get into that on the other podcast, but I think rewarding Cliff would be a great way to recognize a good Commanders season. So that's a good fit here, 28-1. Jesse Minter, Chargers defensive guy, 33-1. another second-year coordinator. Fits well there. Another one where it's like, okay, Rashawn Slater's hurt on the offensive line. Could the defense be really good again? They kind of did some funky stuff and pulled off this weirdly good pass defense last year. I'm not sure I believe in it, but maybe Minter is doing some crazy stuff. Could he get credit and not Jim Harbaugh? I don't know, but Minter is one of those names you hear buzzed about as a possible head coach someday. Maybe he's that guy, 33-1. And then my favorite of the bunch, and actually my number one out of all of these guys, Zach Robinson for the Falcons, offensive coordinator. Again, year 2 guy. All 3 of these guys, he's 60-1. I think Atlanta sets up really nicely here where the defense is not going to be good, but the division sucks. It's terrible and wide open. Atlanta's going to have a soft schedule. They won 8. What if they get to 12 wins? Because that offense just explodes this year. You're going to get credit for Michael Penix. You're basically rookie quarterback. You're going to have this great, beautiful run game that Zach Robinson already had them doing last year. Now, I like this a little less after the news that Caleb McGarry, the right tackle, is hurt. They're down 2 linemen now from last, with Dahlman gone as well. But again, I think this is a really good way to invest in Atlanta, who is a team with a long tail upside, even if it's not one I believe in. If it hits, it's got to be the offense. And if it's the offense, hot young coordinator, possible next Ben Johnson type, Zach Robinson, maybe he's the guy that gets credit. So I'll go half unit on Zach Robinson, 60-1, and then a quarter unit sprinkle on Cliff and Minter at their long odds.
I like the Zach Robinson bet probably the most. He was at basically the top of my list, understanding the lineman issue, but consider what we believe that offense can be. I think there's a high upside with the price. My issue with Washington is, so I like Kingsbury at like, say, 30-1 versus Quinn at 40-1. I think if it's Kingsbury, he's more likely to win that award than Dan Quinn is. My worry is how many games Washington would have to win based off of what they did last year to basically get him noticed after he was noticed last year. Is kind of, that's a little difficulty in my brain.
I agree.
The other name, the other thing I think that's kind of interesting when you look at this is you can talk about people, and I just have a large list here of names, but I think it's worth noting that like Adam Stenavich is the offensive coordinator for Green Bay. We expect Green Bay's offense to be really, really good, but he's 200-1, but no one really knows the name. So he's probably not involved in this conversation. So I think when you go unit by unit and you ask yourself, well, are they going to be really good? Yes. Well, no one knows the name. He's probably not going to win. Is an interesting exercise. I'll just call it. Like Cincinnati, Dan Pitcher, offensive coordinator. He's 200-1 as well. You know, Burrow could win MVP. They could be the best unit. Cincinnati's defense could be terrible as usual. But are we going to know the name at the end of the year?
Right.
I don't know, but I find the price kind of intriguing.
I think the main thing, what you're kind of hinting at and what we talked about a little bit, you got to look at the team and say, okay, good things happen for the team. Who gets credit? Who is the media giving credit to? And with Washington, it's probably not Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn's a defense guy, and the defense is not going to be the story. It's the offense. So maybe it's just Jaden Daniels. That probably is true, but maybe it's Cliff. If it's the Falcons, it's got to be the offense. And so Raheem Morris, more of a defense guy. Can't be him. Maybe is it Penix?
That's also
okay. Well, you know, what about the coaches that we're talking about? Usually not giving the award to a top quarterback. That's why Burrow is going to be getting the credit, not Dan Pitcher, even though I like Dan Pitcher and what they're doing. So with Atlanta, okay, we're probably not going to give Michael Penix the same sort of credit that Joe Burrow gets. So where do we give credit to it? Maybe it's Offensive Player of the Year for Bijan or Drake. Those would be interesting names as well. We'll get to that one in a few minutes. But I think just thinking about, okay, what if this team is good? What's the story that everybody is telling, and who gets credit for that story? And really, that's the story of the podcast today, is me saying, okay, I'm going to come out of here with bets on like 20 teams that they're good version. Well, how do I bet the good version of them? And that's what we're trying to identify today.
One more before we move on. Houston, Nick Caley's 40-1 on offense. Matt Burke's 50-1 on defense. Why not just take D'Amico at 65-1? Like, to me, that you kind of look at the prices, you say, okay, those two units are going to be great, but I like the D'Amico price better, so I'd pass on the others. It's at least the way I looked at it.
Makes sense to me.
No surprises, folks. NFL season kicks off in just a matter of days. It's why we're doing this awards pod. So get the most out of your award-winning Action Network app. You'll want an Action Pro subscription because only Pro subscribers get real-time pick alerts from experts like Brandon Anderson, myself, our entire Action Network team. Plus, you can access our Pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and a ton of other benefits. To celebrate football's return, we've got a special offer. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro. Get $20 off the annual price with the promo code POD20, POD20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. All right. We saved the better awards for now, so we are going to get into those. Defensive Rookie of the Year is the first one we will talk about. Solid field last year, and I think a better field at the top with a real clear favorite. But I'll let you kind of set the table here.
Yeah, so last year we didn't get a defender drafted till number 15. So we kind of knew that we're going to get this sort of weaker field. It turned out to be fine. Jared Verse looked awesome and really came through. Will Anderson was a big hit for us in the pod a couple of years ago. Love my Andersons. Sauce Gardner, Micah Parsons. Names winning this award are names that are getting drafted near the top and names that are just kind of stud defenders. So that's what we're looking for here. As usual with defenders, I probably want a pass rusher. 6 of our last 10 Defensive Rookie of the Year pass rushers. 6 of the last 10 had at least 7 sacks. Now, we do have 3 corners in the mix, and it's the only 3 corners this century, but all since 2015. That's tough because it's tough to predict who's going to be a top corner, and their stats are not as easy to come by, but they're in the mix at least. We got to acknowledge that. And the key thing here, both Rookie of the Year awards, draft slot matters. It's telling us who the good players are. That's why they got drafted so high, and here's the numbers for it. Every winner this century for Defensive Rookie of the Year is a top 40 pick. 22 of the 25 are first-round picks. 20 of them are top 15 picks. That's 80% of the winners are top 15 picks. Didn't go well last year because we had 1 top 15 defender, but we should just be assuming that. In fact, 6 winners since 2010 are just top 5 picks. So the higher you are in the draft, the better you are. That's why you got drafted. And also, the more likely you're going to get playing time right away. That's all goes together. We actually, like with many defender awards, we do want a favorite here. 10 of our last 13 winners started plus 1,100 or shorter. So usually a favorite is the better buy here. Winning, usually not in the money for Rookie of the Year, but 6 of the last 8 winners here, 10 plus games that their team won. So I'm not ready to say you have to win, but it does look like we're starting to consider that a little bit. And then kind of a wonky last criteria. The last 7 before Verse, winners of this award, they joined a team that was bottom 6 in points per game allowed, and they jumped into the top 12. Points per game allowed is, an old school stat, but they're joining a bad defense. Duh, that's why they got drafted so high. And now they're elevating to a top defense. It's probably a good reason that we're paying attention to them. So that's what we're looking for, and ideally, probably a pass rusher.
Yeah, and the top of the board is probably the clearest favorite we have in the awards, to be honest with you. Like there is a large gap, and it's Abdul Carter, who is about 2-1. Then you get to some names like Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, Mike Green, Travis Hunter, Jahad Campbell, and then you start to get down the list a little bit more there. So with Carter so high up, and the Giants defense, really, it's being talked about as one of the better units with an offense with a huge question mark. So he could get a large microscope under him, and it could do well. So what do you make at the top of the board here?
Yeah, I mean, I hate the top of the board because Abdul Carter is an absolute bullseye for everything I just said. Top 3 pick, best defender in the draft, depending on what we decide Travis Hunter is. He had 12 sacks last year. You're playing on a line where you got Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So you're going to get single team probably a lot of the season. So you just get Abdul Carter just coming after the quarterback. I don't love Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, but even on this team and on his old Titans teams, we're still getting like multiple 8-sack guys. That's probably enough here. Now, you're not going to win. You're not going to get to 10 wins on this team probably. And they actually weren't quite bad enough points per game to elevate. So we miss a couple criteria there. Pretty close to a bullseye. The problem is I can't do it at 2-1, man. Like I cannot invest in a guy that's yet to play an NFL game as this like monster favorite here, no matter how obvious it is. So I'm going to nibble on two guys just as kind of an anti-Abdul Carter position, because if one guy is so heavily favored, then there has to be value at other positions if I'm right about those odds being wrong. So two guys, Michael Williams, San Francisco 49ers, edge rusher, 14-1. He played 3 years at Georgia, never topped 5 sacks. We're off to a roaring start. I don't love that, but he's going to play across Nick Bosa. So Bosa's going to get the double teams. Michael's going to come after the quarterback. We like him playing for Robert Saleh. We love Chris Kokorek, the defensive line coach, absolute star assistant coach in this league. I think Michael Williams can rush outside or kind of flip inside, so maybe gets to stay on the field a little bit more. They were a bottom 5 points per game defense last year. We know they should be just better as a team this year. So at 14-1, Michael Williams, one of the top edge rushers in the draft. I like him. I'm going to break my own rules with Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker from the Browns, not even a first-round pick. Top pick of the second round, but last year, 90 tackles, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions. Even as a linebacker, he has a 9.9 RAS score. So that puts him as that's an athletic score, relative athleticism. He's a top 50 athleticism linebacker out of 3,200 linebackers since 1987. So I'm hoping he comes in. The Browns are missing a lot of linebackers. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is gone. A couple years ago, when the Browns were awesome under Jim Schwartz, he had over 100 tackles, 2 picks, 3.5 sacks, filling up the box score, right? This used to be a linebacker award. Now we switched, and we mostly do the edge rushers. We only have one linebacker the last decade. We had Luke Kuechly a little before that. Schlesinger played in the preseason game 13 snaps, and he had 6 tackles in those snaps. So can I just get 100 tackles, and maybe he gets over the line? Again, joining a bottom 5 points per game, possible good defense. We're not going to win 10 games. So that's not happening for the Browns, but it's just kind of an anti-Carter position. Not super confident. So not a full unit, probably quarter or half on each, but Michael Williams, 14-1, Carson Schlesinger, 35-1.
Yeah, I like the Schlesinger pick for a few reasons, except I believe it was about double the price. A lot of people like it. It's come down a little bit, but still at 35-1. I think it fine bet nonetheless. I think it being twice the price of Mason Graham, even though Mason Graham, we talked about it, pass rusher, stat compiler, might have an easier time with Myles Garrett there. I like the Schlesinger pick. Williams is fine. I mean, you're big onto San Francisco. So I kind of think that there is a chance that if your defense is good enough and the team is going in the right direction, he and Saleh's there, it makes sense that he's the pick. I think the two guys I'll bring to the table, so it looks like Derek Harmon just going to miss one game, but I think 35-40-1 on that Pittsburgh defense is an interesting thought process. He should get the snaps. He should get time as long as he's healthy. And the other one that I feel is just kind of way too long. Now, the unit is terrible, but he's going to get the snaps, is Kenneth Grant. I made money on him in the draft. Now he's like 80-1 on that Miami line. So do I like the unit? Absolutely not. Miami could be terrible. But if you're looking at just the ability to get numbers, I mean, he's out there and the price is real long.
Yeah, I have a hard time betting on defensive tackles as award winners just because you just don't get a lot of the stats. And I know, too, these days, a tackle, an edge, guys are kind of more positionless on the line. So maybe I'm overthinking that one. But I feel like we're going to either of those guys, we're going to need to be doing PFF grades and advanced metrics to kind of prove. And look, Jared Verse arguably won that way last year. He actually didn't hit the 7 sacks number. He only had 4.5, but he was an awesome. He was awesome at getting the quarterback and getting pressure rate, top 10 in the league. So I think we're moving that way where just a stud defender, even without the stats, could get the award. I think it's open if it's not Abdul Carter. So don't bet on the plus 200 guy. It's just not the move here. If you like a long shot, Evans or mine or whoever you've got in your mind, I think it's a good way to try to nibble this award.
And the other thing is Dexter Lawrence, Burns, Thibodeau, there's a chance he just doesn't get the numbers and looks great. And you get to a guy who is kind of more alone and is able to compile some stats, especially at 2-1 for Abdul Carter. All right. Offensive Rookie of the Year time. So Applauds, nice job. You nailed Jaden Daniels last year at 6-1. Obviously, real clear pick. Took the league by storm. Now, before that, you had C.J. Stroud, Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Justin Herbert. So, with that being said, you have kind of a mix of odds as well. Some quarterbacks near the top and some longer position players. So, what are you kind of taking from our past?
Yeah, so this is one where actually favorites don't usually win the award. Jaden Daniels was kind of an exception. He wasn't the favorite. Caleb Williams was the favorite, but Jaden was still pretty short at 6-1. In the last decade, only 3 winners that started 8-1 or shorter heading into the season. So the guys we think are going to win, not necessarily yet, but not necessarily so far down the list. We do like quarterbacks here. I know it's a real shocker. We love quarterbacks when they're available. So 4 of the last 6 winners, quarterbacks. 8 out of 15, 11 out of 20, consistently like half, a little more than half here over the last 2 decades. 4 receivers, 5 running backs. So it used to be a mega running back award. Like historically, 61% running backs. We know about rookie running backs. You in fantasy leagues love our rookie running backs. Only 4 of the last 17 winners are running backs. So maybe not as much running back anymore. Again, draft slot matters. 17 out of the last 20 winners of Offensive Rookie of the Year are right there in the first round. 16 out of the 20, 80% again, top 12 picks. Top 12! And we're drafting defensive guys most years in there too. So that is really narrowing the field down to like 5-6 guys. In fact, 9 of the last 20 are top 3 picks. That's half. Half of our Offensive Rookies of the Year are just top 3 picks. So last 7 winners, all top 10 picks. If you do leave round 1, you want a running back. Only 2 guys in the last 3 decades, Dak Prescott and Anquan Boldin, are the only 2 that won from outside the first round as a non-running back. So I think that's what you're looking for. Winning helps, but not vital. Last 15 winners, over half finished under 500 on the season. But if you're a quarterback and you do win, you're going to win Rookie of the Year. Just look at the last couple of years. Brock Bowers last year, Puka Nacua the year before that. Historic rookie numbers, not Rookie of the Year. We had a quarterback that was a rookie and made the playoffs, so they win. That's how this goes. Stats, of course, are going to matter. Running backs or receiver, probably you need something like 1,300 scrimmage yards, 10 touchdowns. That's been the average over the last 15 years. Quarterback, 4,000 yards, 30 scores. So not huge numbers, but for perspective, you probably need to be a top 10 fantasy player at your position. That's kind of what you need to be to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, you need to be a top draft pick. You mostly, I would say, need to be a quarterback or a running back these days. But I think the most interesting thing is the top of the board says Genty at 250, Cam Ward 3-1, Omarion Hampton 9-1, and then you start to get out from there. So I guess the question is Cam Ward too easy here?
I think he's too easy in that this is obviously not a great quarterback draft. Last year we had 6 in the top 12 quarterbacks. So we kind of knew out of the gates, it's got to be one of these guys, right? Well, this year he's really the only quarterback option. Titans quarterbacks last year combined for 3,300 yards, 22 touchdowns. So not great. Not the numbers we're looking for here. I think we rank this as the worst weapons in the league as skill position players. You're not going to get a lot of help. The line's improving, but improving means you were bad last year. I don't think we're going to get a quarterback win scenario here where you won 10 games and made the playoffs. It's possible, but I don't want to bet on it with this team. I think Cam Ward, number 1 pick, you got to be a top 5 candidate for sure. But at plus 350, I can't get there with him. Similar but different. Ashton Genty is usually ranked just slightly ahead, plus 250, plus 350 at Bucks. He would be my favorite. But favorites don't win this award. Remember, only 3 of the last 10 were priced anywhere near this short. Here's a top 6 pick last year, 2,600 rushing yards, 29 scores. He catches passes. Now he's in the Chip Kelly system. Pete Carroll's had some pretty good running backs play for him. Everyone's excited about Clint Kubiak. Sorry, not Clint Kubiak, but everyone's excited about the Chip Kelly and the way that blocking should be elevated. I will say the line is better pass blocking than run blocking, I think. So that's one thing I don't like. There's a lot I do like. He's the favorite. History tells us the favorite doesn't win this award. And at such a short number at 3-1, I have to trust what my data is telling me, and I can't bet the favorite, even though I think he is the right favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if you're avoiding the guy on the Raiders and the guy on the Titans, it feels like someone else can win it when you just think about the teams and what they've done recently.
Sure.
Forget about the player, even though with the hype. So, talk to me about another top 12 pick and some of your bets.
Yeah, so the guy that I'm going to go with here is Travis Hunter. 12-1 odds. Obviously, everybody knows who Travis Hunter is, so not going to have any name recognition there. 96 catches last year, 15 touchdowns. Is Brian Thomas Jr. in the way? I think not, even though I like Brian Thomas Jr. We're going to get back to him in a second. This team loses from last season 153 catches from Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis. There's plenty of balls to go around in Jacksonville, even with BTJ catching plenty. We love the upside here. Liam Cohen offense, love that. Chris Godwin, that slot role, the power slot, I think that's probably where Travis Hunter ends up. He was crushing last year for the Buccaneers before he got hurt. Chris Godwin, his 7-game pace was 120 catches, 1,400 yards, 12 scores. If Travis Hunter does even 80% of that, he's a runaway Rookie of the Year winner in all likelihood. Elite route runner from reception to perception. And I think, too, with Hunter, we don't know necessarily what sort of snaps we're getting either way, but it looks like maybe 80% offense, some defense. I kind of feel like rather than will it split, will he do too little in both markets and not win either? I'm going the other way. I think he's an offensive player who gets bonus extra credit because he also has an interception and, he returned a kick for a touchdown. Like, I think it's just going to be a thing where he's a receiver, but he also gets a little credit for all the other stuff he's doing. And again, we know who he is. That's kind of this historic narrative where I think if he's even mostly good, voters are going to want to be on the right side of history and, get out ahead and give him something. And remember, half of all Rookie of the Year offensive picks are just top 3 picks, which is what Travis Hunter was. So he's my pick here, full unit at 12-1. And then we just rifle through some long shots for you here. I told you long shots, if you want them outside the first round, running backs. So 3 names, RJ Harvey in Denver, 60th pick of the draft. My number 2 offensive line. We know the history with Sean Payton and Alvin Kamara. He won Rookie of the Year under Sean Payton. So I think RJ Harvey could possibly be the winner there. Caleb Johnson in Pittsburgh. Nate Tice called him, quote, "Honey, I shrunk Derrick Henry." Well, guess what? He's now playing for Derrick Henry's old coach, Arthur Smith, in this zone-heavy run scheme. 1,500 yards and 20 scores last year. I think we're not going to get a ton of passing here, but possibly just an old-school Steelers rushing attack, run-heavy type guy, getting the Najee Harris carries, basically. And then last one in name, everyone's getting excited about these days. Round 7 pick, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 34-1. Make sure to shop around. That number obviously is going to get steamed up even more. They traded Brian Robinson. We got Bill out here as he's going by, apparently. We love a running back with a running quarterback. So I like that here. Probably going to need, again, more of the Caleb Johnson type. He's only had 7 receptions in his career. So we're going to need touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, and just kind of getting a lot of goal line work. And, round 7 never hurts to have a little narrative in your favor. So those 3 running backs, all in the 30 to 40 range, quarter unit on each one. I got to say the name because I'm not betting it now, but he's such a big name in the media. If Shedeur Sanders gets to play some football, we got to respect the fact that he's going to be a story and he's going to have, people are going to want to reward him and the obvious narrative story. I'm not betting him now because he's not starting, but if he just kind of falls off the radar and turns into 200-1 or something, it's not a crazy long shot. I just say, okay, everybody is going to be watching. Throw the stats out, throw the winning out. Just, do we want to reward Shedeur Sanders? I think that's possible. And then last one here. This is your $1 bet. This is the bomb long shot bet of the podcast. Kansas City Chiefs offensive tackle, Josh Simmons, 500-1 offensive Rookie of the Year. We've never had an offensive lineman win this award or any of the other awards, except obviously Protector now. Why not a Chief? He's going to be on TV every game. They'll be talking about the new left tackle on the Chiefs. We're going to get the Kelseys talking about him on New Heights. Taylor Swift shows up wearing a Josh Simmons jersey to one of the games. Number 32, first round pick. Could be, honestly, one of the best players in the draft if he stays healthy. My old guy from the 90s, Chris Fumatu Malafala, my last pick in every fantasy draft. That's his uncle, apparently. All the more reason to like Josh Simmons. What's not the like 500 to 1, the most ridiculous bet you can make. I'm putting a buck on it. Let's see what happens.
I like looking, I'll go up and down here. I like looking at Travis Hunter for Offensive Rookie of the Year as his Heisman Award, which is basically like he's not going to play enough defense, and anything he does on defense will make his offensive look better in terms of just a resume. Interesting way of looking at it. I like Harvey and Caleb. Those are my two. I'm with you. 40 to 1 and like 30 something to 1. I think they have the best upside of that group that you mentioned. I really like the Simmons pick. The only question is he up for protector as well? Because if I like Creed Humphrey, might as well put a buck or two on him if he has odds up. I didn't even look, but I like the Simmons thought. The only other two would be Dart at 25 to 1. I think I'm with you with Shador in terms of waiting, but I would look at Dart. Might as well wait a few weeks, see if it dips, because I think him getting into that slot and throwing some touchdowns and looking good with neighbors could get some numbers. And then Ollie Gordon at 150 to 1. I don't know. Definitely a dream, but another shot in the dark in terms of someone outside that could just get some look because of injuries. Any thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I can't hate the Dart pick. We like quarterbacks for this award. I will say you got to hope that he plays, I honestly think, almost by the end of September, because historically you've got to play enough games just to get a chance at this award. So if you maybe get an injury crack or something like that and get him on the field early, I do think Shador could break that code because of who he is. I don't think Jackson Dart can, but New York media, so I don't mind it for sure.
All right. Offensive Player of the Year. This, for a long time, was a running back award. 8 straight at the turn of the century. Then we got 7 QBs in 10 years from 2007 to 2016. Now, the last 6 have split. 3 wide receivers, 3 running backs with Saquon, McCaffrey the last 2 years. So seems jumbled in my brain when I looked at it. But what do you make of the Offensive Player of the Year?
So it does seem like we have moved away from quarterbacks. It seems like we've really clearly gone with MVP is the best quarterback, and we're never giving it to a running back or receiver, even though we have the conversation every year. So this award is for the running backs and receivers. This is the runner-up award in that way. So last 4 quarterbacks that won this award also won MVP anyway. So it's not even necessarily like Drew Brees used to be this, where it's like, Drew Brees has a bajillion stats, but only won 9 or 10 games. Let's give him Offensive Player of the Year, but we'll give MVP to the winning guy. It's not even that anymore most of the time. That's probably your Joe Burrow case this year here. So I do think it's a running back receiver award. I still lean that this is shifting toward receivers with the direction the game is going, but 2 running backs the last 2 years, so hard to argue with that. We hadn't had a receiver win it since Jerry Rice in 93 until we got these 3 guys. So I still think it goes that way. And the hard part about this award is, above everything else, you just need ridiculous stats. Here's the numbers that you have to average over the last 15 years to win this award. Quarterbacks, 4,900 passing yards and 45 touchdowns. That does include rushing, but those are ridiculous numbers. Running backs, 1,800 rushing yards and 14 scores, 2,200 scrimmage yards. Every winner has been over 2,000 scrimmage yards. And then receiver, the average stats here, 140 catches, 1,800 yards, and 11 scores. These are, I'm a top 3 player in my fantasy team, I'm winning the league for you sort of numbers, which means we don't know who's going to put these numbers up. It's impossible predicting. If we could do that, we'd be winning lots of other stuff too. There is one caveat here. You wouldn't think so, but you do have to win football games too. All of our last 15 years of winners have at least 10 wins the season that they did it. They're averaging 12.5, which is really like 13 considering the schedule expansion. That's surprising that we need not just stats, but your stats gotta matter, man. You can't just be putting up garbage time stats. So Jameis Winston, get out of here. Let's get some real stat production, but serious numbers. This award for me is one that we'll go through some of the names here. I tend to go very light on this one before the season. And then like 2-3 weeks in, when we start to kind of get a little nibble of like, hey, those Dolphins, remember a couple years ago, the first couple weeks, you're like, something different about them. What's happening with Tyreek out there? Now you invest. And you lost a little bit on the price, but you start to see some of those outlier productions. I think this is one to maybe build your portfolio as we go. But right now, we'll talk about some kind of the shorter odds guys and why I don't like them. And then the longer odds guys, I'm going to nibble a little bit on.
Yeah, you start to go name by name when you handicap this award, and there's just so many players, obviously. So let's go at the top. Saquon Barkley, the favorite. Then you've got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Derrick Henry. They basically round out your 15-1 or shorter. So I'll kind of ask you, of that group, and especially Saquon, based off of what he did, why is he the favorite in the terms of, like, do we really expect it to happen again? And if it happens again, is he getting the award? I think it's all interesting questions.
I think it's interesting, and I think like he kind of has to be the favorite given what he just did, but he also absolutely cannot be the favorite. Let me explain what that means. No running back or receiver has won 2 offensive player of the years, not just back-to-back, but just 2 at any point in their career since Marshall Faulk at the turn of the century. So that's bad news for Saquon, who just won it. Bad news for Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago, Justin Jefferson before that. All names that we're talking about in this area. The problem is, if you need ridiculous outlier production, how do you do that once and then impress even more the next time? Saquon was on the verge of breaking the rushing record last year. How is he going to top that now? Are you going to actually break the rushing record this year and steal all the Jalen Hurts tush-push touchdowns on top of it? Don't forget last year, think of all those breakaway touchdowns. Those are not repeatable. Those are not things that you want to bet on happening again. The 70-yard bust through the line, gone down the sideline. I'm projecting Saquon at 1,500 rushing yards. That's a great season, and it's 500 yards less than last year. Like, that's disappointing, and you can't be the winner there. He's like plus 600 in most books. A very clear, easy no bet for me. Jamar Chase, you mentioned. Triple crown last year. He leads the league in catches and yards and touchdowns. So, of course, you won player of the year, right? No, not even top 2. He can't even finish top 2 despite all those receiving stats. It is so hard to win this award and get those sort of numbers. Jamar Chase typically averages something more like 11 touchdowns. He had 17 last year. Mike Clay puts out a great regression article every year. He's a top regression candidate. I mentioned Burrow earlier. I think if you want a Bengal, Burrow has like a 5,500 yards or 50 touchdowns. Maybe that old Drew Brees type that kind of fits there. The running backs, we talked about Bijan earlier. He loses those 2 offensive linemen. Derrick Henry's 31. You know, it's got to happen sometime for him. And Lamar's on the team. Jahmyr Gibbs, he loses his 2 offensive linemen and Ben Johnson as well. I think you have to, as a book, put these guys who were awesome last year as the favorites because they're so good and we have their numbers. But as a bettor, you should not bet those guys because they just had their outlier year and now they're going to come back toward the mean. Now we need to pick the next outlier year. So of all these guys we're talking about, if I had to break my own rules and bet one of them, I can't get past Christian McCaffrey, 22-1, just because I think that he really should be among the favorites in this award. Not like that next tier down. McCaffrey looks healthy. The Niners are so good. He's only 29. It seems like he's old as he's played so long, but he has 3 top 7 finishes in this award. We know if he plays, the numbers are going to be there. The touchdowns are there. The receiving yards are there. They don't have great wide receivers early. The schedule is soft. His last 4 healthy seasons, McCaffrey every year has at least 1,880 scrimmage yards. We need 2,000. You're right there, man. And you got double-digit touchdowns all 4 of those years. That's every year except his rookie season and his injured season. So I will play McCaffrey, even though he breaks like all of my rules. He's a repeat winner. He's a little bit too short here. I think he should be like 8-1 or 10-1. He's 22-1. So it's still value because I think he should be one of the 3 or 4 favorites, not like the 8th or 10th favorite here.
Yeah, based on those odds, it's hard to resist. So is McCaffrey your only bet? That's number one. The question is there's a slew of wide receivers. And based off of Jamar Chase having a triple crown and finishing 3rd in odds, it's hard to imagine what a wide receiver would have to do. Or I guess it's hoping that a running back doesn't put up what Saquon did to get the wide receiver higher on the list. But with Puka and Nico and Lamb and Amon-Ra, like, how do you kind of go through those names and who stands out?
Yeah, so those guys are all around like 20-1-ish. Jefferson just barely ahead of them, like 16-1. I really want to bet Nico Collins here. He was absolutely cruising the start of last season. The first 4 games he paced to over 2,000 yards. There's no Diggs, no Tank Dell there. We talked about Nick Caley, the new coordinator. We don't know. Maybe untapped upside there. Not a big touchdowns guy. I love Nico. I want him in my draft and fantasy at 20-1 in this mix. I don't see a lot of value. I don't think it's a bad bet, but I don't think it'd be a best bet. Instead, I'm going to sprinkle a quarter unit on 3 guys that I think should be in this group, but are not. These are all guys, all 3 of them are at 40-1, not 20-1. So I'm getting double the value on a guy that I think should be in the mix here. First one, AJ Brown. Back-to-back Eagle winners. How about that? What if the Eagles have to pass a little bit more this season because they're not just milking the clock the entire second half? They were number 31 in pass rate in the second half. They're about average in the first half. They're just running the clock out on teams. AJ Brown was on pace for 127 catches last year. In the year before, he had that crazy 7-game stretch, right? At least 120 yards every game. That stretch pace for 140 catches, 2,300 yards. I think AJ Brown has a legit chance at 2,000 yards this year, which somehow still no receiver has ever done before. He's so efficient with his touches, great yards per catch. AJ Brown, 40-1. Next 40-1 guy, Brian Thomas. Last 7 games as a rookie last year, his pace was 120 catches, 1,600 yards, and 12 scores. We talked about Liam Cohen, Travis Hunter. Probably not going to hit both Jaguars here. Otherwise, man, they must be good. But could he be this year's Jamar Chase? Bad defense, no running attack. Could he just be the guy that's getting fed? Maybe Hunter actually helps because he let Thomas get a little bit better single coverage at times. And then the last one, I debated, am I giving this one? Am I not? I just would hate myself if I didn't bet him at this price. Tyreek Hill, 40-1. I think it's probably over, if I'm being honest with myself. He's 31. The injury history is there. The vibes are just, what's the opposite of immaculate? The vibes are immaculate in Miami. It's terrible. But before last year, he was top 4 offensive player of the year 2 seasons in a row. He's been my bet, I think 3 years in a row for this award. It's 40-1. It's probably a dead bet by week 2. But Tyreek can just go out and have like 200 yards week 1, and I'll be so mad if I didn't take this number. So those are my guys. AJ Brown, Brian Thomas, Tyreek Hill, 40-1, quarter unit each, and a quarter unit on McCaffrey, 22-1. So just 1 unit. I'm splitting out between the 4 guys that I think could have monster seasons. And if you don't bet those names, get them in your fantasy draft. That's the guys I want in fantasy too.
I like those 3 names, especially at the odds. If you're going to bet McCaffrey, I feel like you have to put a few bucks on the parlay with him and Trent Williams as the protector of the year, because I feel like there's some good chemistry there. And those are some decent odds on both. I'll just bring up a few guys on my list. Bucky Irving, 60-1. Understand there's no Wirfs, but heck of an upside. People talk ceiling of like running back 1 when it would have to get there. A lot of points on that offense too. Jackson Smith and Jigba at 50-1, I feel like is intriguing. Obviously, it's Sam Darnold, and you have to worry about some things there, but Cooper Kupp could help, and he's a monster, so there's receiving yard potential. I looked at people like Worthy at 150-1, Mike Evans at 150-1. Evans feels especially long if you've got someone to worry about on the other side, even without Godwin, and then Godwin comes back. Maybe Evans goes crazy, but those are the names on my list. I thought it was worthy that Simon liked Chase Brown at 100-1. He said that on the favorites, which is intriguing. But those are the names on my list. Any thoughts before we move forward?
Yeah, I think of those names, I don't love the receiver choices. Just again, the production we need is just outrageous here. So
sure,
to get to those numbers is a long shot. I like the idea of both Bucky Irving and Chase Brown. Here's why. Both teams' offensive lines I'm worried about, but weirdly, if your offensive line isn't good, if Wirfs is out, if the Bengals don't have any linemen, sometimes you run more actually to help your offensive line. It's easier to run block than pass block. And both guys are good receivers. That helps toward the scrimmage yards thing. Both guys are in offenses that should be pretty good and maybe have not great defenses and need to pass a lot and try to get a lot of points as well. So I think we've seen the running backs pop off on this award. I think both those guys profile as, could I see them 2,000 scrimmage yards? Yeah, that makes sense to me. Good pass catchers. I could see them at long numbers. So I like the idea of the long shot for both there.
I like Bucky. All right. Last but not least, Defensive Player of the Year. This one has been one of your favorite awards because I think it goes a little bit off the page in terms of some of the names. And especially last year, it really had a bit of a wild card when Surtain won, especially because it's been, at least what I looked at, like a sack award on more levels,
Yeah.
like the best pass rusher, the Myles Garretts, the TJ Watts, things of that nature. So what do you think about Surtain winning it last year? And do you feel like that's a trend or a blip?
So I was more upset about Patrick Surtain winning this award last year than I was about Lamar Jackson winning MVP. If that answers the question, I feel like I think looking back, Surtain just has to be seen as a pretty significant outlier. Not a complete outlier. We saw Stephon Gilmore earlier this decade win the award very similarly, where he's the lead cornerback, the assumed best player on a really good number one in some metrics defenses. But I think here's the outlier part. Last year, we said this is a pass rusher award. I agree with you. I think it still is. Aiden Hutchinson, big favorite to win the award, out for the season. Micah Parsons, big favorite to win the award. He gets injured, misses a big chunk. Nick Bosa gets hurt. Myles Garrett, pretty good, but his team is terrible, so he gets penalized. TJ Watt's the favorite for a lot of the season. He kind of falls off late. All the names that are usually expecting to win this award are getting hurt. So sometimes just everything clears out. And it felt like a year where it's like, well, we got to vote for someone, right? Like, look past Surtain. Who are the other names that got votes? Trey Hendrickson finishes second on a bad Bengals defense. Why are we rewarding a Bengals defender? Because we didn't have options. Zach Bond, top 5. This dude was a free agent. Anybody could have had him off the scrap heap a year ago. And now it's a linebacker, top 5 in defensive player of the year. Your guy, Kirby Joseph, I remember we talked about him a bunch. He finishes top 6 in this award. These are not names that should be winning top 6 defensive player of the year. Let's be real. Like, this award year after year goes to top pass rushers. 8 of the last 10 winners are still pass rushers, even with Surtain and Gilmore in there. Those 8 dudes average 16 sacks their winning season. They all have at least 11 sacks. You just pick the top defender here. 6 of the last 10 guys that have won finished previously in the top 6 voting. So basically, again, similar to the offensive lineman stuff, we're not digging down the board respectfully for Zach Bond and Kirby Joseph. We're picking the defenders that everyone agrees are top 5 guys. Over the last decade, we want a guy typically in their like mid to late 20s. Average age 27. Nobody age 30 or more in the last decade. I think you kind of hit the cliff there, and that matters with a couple of these guys. 6 out of 10 were year 4 or 5 in your career, and I think that part matters too. Nobody before year 4. You have to sort of build the cred a little bit. You got to get into people's minds as this elite defender. Then you can win. Team award? We always have to ask that with these. Average winner over the last decade, defender of the year, 10th in points per game allowed, 9th in DVOA. So not bad, but not necessarily this elite defense, kind of like Denver award was last year. But it is a team award, and then you got to win games. You got to win games. Sorry, Myles Garrett, that's why you didn't get credit last year. Every one of these guys the last decade has at least 9 wins. They're averaging 11 wins. So we need someone on a winning team, 9 to 11 wins or better. We want 15 sacks. We want, ideally, a year 4 or 5 pass rusher, and that's what we want. And I'm not getting too hung up on the Surtain thing from last year.
I think you've probably nailed it on the head in terms of some of the names and the way you should be looking at the award. But let's talk about the odds at the top, and then we can kind of go from there. So it's Micah, about 6-7 to 1, with Aiden Hutchinson, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, about 11 to 1, Jared Verse, Max Crosby, and Will Anderson kind of round out your about 16 to 1 or shorter at the end there. So I think of those names, are you sticking with the plan of a favorite? Like, do you feel like any of them are worth it? Just considering, the criteria of the award.
Yeah, so longtime listeners know, typically on this award, I'm usually picking not just one of the favorites, but often 2, 3, even 4 of the favorites. And I'm just saying, okay, forget everybody else. Just give me these guys against the field. That's what I did last year. The field got me. It's going to happen sometimes. I'm kind of doing that this year, but it's just going to be one guy. So let me rule some names out. TJ Watt's 31, Myles Garrett's 30. Those guys historically may have aged out of this award by now. Garrett obviously not on a great team either. Will Anderson and Jared Verse, year 3, year 2. History says that's too early. It doesn't mean you can't win it. Hutchinson was year 3 a year ago, and he looked like he's going to win. I'm going by my criteria. My numbers say you're too old, you're too young. Max Crosby, the Raiders defense stinks. They're not going to be able to get him enough production, enough sacks for him. I don't need him. I don't mind Nick Bosa. You get a little discount on his price from last year, but he's basically had like 10 sacks each of the last 2 years. So I would not quit the production I want. Hutchinson, he's the other way. He's about half the price he was a year ago. He is a sweet spot. Age 25, year 4, number 1 in PFF edge grade rusher, 7.5 sacks in 5 games last year. So it's like, okay, great. He's going to break the record. Well, how about what happened in those games? He played backup tackles like 3-4 games in a row, including one game against the Bucs where he had 4.5 of those 7.5 sacks. So let's not maybe get too far out on our skis with Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's right to be in the mix, but is he really the favorite? Is he the best defender in the league? He's not the best defender in the league. And also, Aleem McNeil, some of the other guys on the line, they're injured. He's still injured a little bit himself and coming back. I don't need to invest favorite pricing on that sort of player. I'll invest in the guy I have left, which is my best bet of this entire podcast. It's Micah Parsons, 8-1, absolute bullseye for this award. Age 26, year 5, right where I want him to be. 3 healthy seasons out of 4, top 3 defensive player of the year, including his rookie season. Last year, he's not healthy. He gets hurt. He comes back. In the last 9 games, he has 11 sacks. That's a 21 sack pace. This is a dude that is a stone cold lock to be defensive player of the year sometime in his career, maybe multiple. He's got a great chance to break the sack record at some point, could be this season. Here are the names in history who have at least 12 sacks each of their first 4 seasons. Micah Parsons, Reggie White, end of list. That is the defender we're talking about here. He leads the NFL in pressure and pass rush win rate since 2023, despite that he led the league in double team rate last year. You shouldn't be able to do that. And last thing, because I know we have to address it, Micah Parsons is laying on the bench in preseason, watching nothing happening. He's on the hold in. I'm not worried about it. This is the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is going to pay the man eventually. Jerry just wants some attention for a while. If anything, I think it's buying us a discount. He was $600 last year. He's $800 now. If anything, if he does miss a game or two, he might accidentally make the case for us. Last 4 years on the field, Micah Parsons, number 1 EPA per play defense. When he's off the field, which is 1,000 plays, number 31. When he's on the field, they're the best defense in football. When he's off, they're the second worst defense. That stat is from Bill Barnwell. Easy play. I'm always starting at Micah Parsons, and this year I'm not adding anyone else. Multi-unit bet, Micah Parsons, 8-1, my favorite bet on the podcast today.
Absolutely absurd. I think the 2 points I like the most would be that he's never won it and he should at some point win the award. It is right to think that because in the end his numbers are absurd and it should fall in his lap at some point. And the second one, if he does miss the opener and they get smoked by Philly on the defensive side, it does kind of help his case, if he got it after the game that week, whatever it turned out to be, because Jerry wanted to make more news. So I completely get the bet. And the fact that it's longer than it was kind of just gives you more value on the same player. So I agree there. The only other names I'll toss you.
One other thought.
Go.
And I believe I'm a little young for this. I'm going off of memory of hearsay here. But older football fans will remember Emmitt Smith holdout from, I think, like the early 90s. I believe he holds out and misses the first 2 games of the year as everyone's mad. Jerry, pay the man. Get him in here. What are we doing? And they go 0-2, I think, to start the season, if I'm getting it right. And then he comes back. They pay him up. And I think he went on MVP that season. They rumble on after that because guess what? We saw just how bad the Cowboys were without their guy. Then Jerry saw it too, paid him up. And so I think history repeats itself here if we get that. And it could make Micah look real good from the sideline, even if we get that.
I like the storyline effort there. That's good on your part. The 2 names I'll throw out there, Danielle Hunter, still 30 in that range. Will Anderson at 16, 18-1. I mean, obviously gives him more single attention. 3rd most sacks last 2 seasons. So, I mean, in terms of numbers, he's going to get there. The other one I think is kind of interesting in 2 years younger, Josh Hines-Allen, also super sack getter. Jacksonville's defense got to be a whole lot better for him to be actually considered in that area, which is why maybe Hunter offers more value. Then the 3rd name would be Greg Rousseau, but at 25, I think he's just getting there. But at 85-1, someone on a good defense, on a good team, can get some sacks. Those are the players I was looking at.
Yeah, I think those make sense as the right long shots. I think Heinz Allen definitely is a guy that I've looked at him as a long shot before. He can get those 3 sack games, and that can get you
Yeah.
numbers in a hurry. This, for me, is the one award, maybe the one bet on the board that I don't bet long shots on. I'm always the long shot guy. Defensive Player of the Year is the one I want, one of the favorites. So I just want Micah this year.
Makes sense to me. All right, best bets time. So just go over what you need to. We've done all the awards. We've gotten through them all. When we get to a 20-game schedule, I am sure they will add more awards to this list. But for now, give us what you got.
Here's hoping. Give us more awards. We'll keep betting them.
Yeah, here's hoping.
My favorite bets, we just gave it out. Micah Parsons, Defensive Player of the Year, plus 800. And second favorite, Trent Williams. We led at the top. The new Protector of the Year award, 11-1. Those are my favorite realistic outcome ones. And then my favorite long shots. And I debated just putting this one with my favorite 2 at the beginning. I love that D'Amico Ryan's 65-1 Coach of the Year bet. I think it's just a great way to invest in the Texans. I like Zach Robinson for Assistant Coach of the Year at 60-1. And truly, because the narrative is just so juicy, Josh Simmons, tackle, Offensive Rookie of the Year, 500-1. Let's go. Taylor Swift Hive. Go give me an Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's in my favorite long shots. That's it.
I love it. I'm also going to touch him for Protector of the Year because, why not? Maybe he gets both. Thank you for listening. My thanks to Brandon for joining me. Check out Brandon's articles as it does a deep dive into each of the awards market this week at actionnetwork.com. Do not forget to download the award-winning Action Network app. If you haven't yet, use promo code POD20 for $20 off a year of Action Pro. Best of luck on all your bets. We will see you back here next time on the Action Network podcast. I'm Evan Abrams. That's Brandon Anderson. Enjoy your awards, everybody.